Welcome to the Tabletop Gaming Guild podcast, a podcast all about the experiences and memories that board games with friends and family can create. On tonight's episode, we are going to discuss pirate games. Before we get to that, let's do our usual round robin of what we have been up to lately.
Well, I'll start off. I just have one game to talk about, and that's a prototype game that I've been playing. Is called Riddimus. Now, being a prototype, I usually don't expect a whole lot out of games, but this is actually a pretty decent sandbox game where you're exploring space, you are defeating pirates, and you have a ominous threat that's looming that appears later in the game that you have to fight, and you have multiple paths to victory. It's a game that's it's a competitive game, but if you don't do well, you could all fail. So you kind of have to cooperate a little bit or all lose, but still you're trying to win because, you know, the big bad that's coming may just wipe you all out.
So I've been playing a couple of games recently, two of them on a really regular base. I've been playing with a buddy of mine online. We've been playing through Raiders of the North Sea, which if you've not played it before, it is a worker placement game that has you acting like Vikings, and on the bottom half of the board you have places to go around your Viking village and do tasks to crew up your ship. And then the upper half of the board, you will place workers to go and start raiding different villages. I can't remember what they were calling it in the game, but so there's villages and there's monasteries and there's fortresses, and you play until either one of, I think, 3 different conditions are met, and then the game starts to wrap up. And of course, as usual, highest victory point count wins. It's a lot of fun. It's a good game, and probably one of my favorite worker placement games. And then we've also been playing Seven Wonders Duel. So both of those games have been around for a little while. Seven Wonders Duel, probably one of my favorite 2-player games specifically. A lot of fun with that one as well. And then recently, I got the chance to play 2 games of Mini Rogue by Nuts Publishing that just was released recently after successfully kickstarting and then having an earlier run back in 2016 as a print and play game. And so it's meant to be a roguelike board game for a single player, though they do have a 2-player variant, and then they also have a campaign variant, which I haven't played through the campaign variant or the 2-player variant yet, but I'm definitely going to. It's a lot of fun. You get your kind of D&D-esque character class that you are going to run through a dungeon, and you have a little teeny cardboard player mat that you will keep track of all your XP, hit points, gold, and all those good things, and you will fight monsters and find treasure and try not to die on your way delving down into the dungeon. There are 4 levels, and at the end of each level, you have to fight a big bad boss. Unless you're like me and you continually just keep falling through the floor of each level, and by the time you get to the 4th level, you're still a first level character, and you die horribly because you are not prepared for the monsters within. So that's a possibility. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Definitely one that I think hopefully more people will take a look at. So
let's see. This week I got into one game called Psycho Killer. I won't go too much into it because I have an upcoming review for it, but it's a card-based game. It plays a couple people. It's a definite play off the 1980s slasher films. So if you're a horror fan or anything like that, it's going to be right up your alley. Very rules light, real simple game. So you play the cards that are all based off of things that happened in those films, and you play as many cards as you want during your turn. And then after you're done, you draw a card. If you draw the Psycho Killer card, it comes out in play and does damage to you. And then if they have any weapon cards in your hands, it increases their damage because now they're armed. And whoever takes the least amount of damage to the game wins. I got to play in that, I think, learning the rules and getting a game in. I think we were in for 20 minutes. Real short, simple, but it was a lot of fun. That's the only game I got in. I got some stuff off my painting desk this week. It was really good. I started and completed 60 Zombies. I have a scenario that I'm potentially working up for not this Butler game day, but the one following that, to hopefully run a Resident Evil-esque kind of game. So that's going to keep me busy for a while. I finished those 60 Zombies, and then I actually pulled all the zombies out of my Zombicide game, and I'm going to be painting all them to add to my horde.
That is insane and awesome. 60 zombies. Well done.
I'm a little scared. How much Zombicide do you have that you're going to put on this table?
Well, I only have the core game of Zombicide. a long time ago, Miniature Market was running a sale, and it was an old defunct zombie game that they called it a horde in a box. It was 20 zombies in it. I got them for $5 a pop. So they've sat in my pile of shame for years. And I was down there one day and I was like, you know what? I'm actually going to do something with this for, once instead of letting them collect dust.
Sounds good. I like it.
I've been playing a few games, but I think I'm only going to talk about one. We played recently Expedition to New Dale. Expedition to New Dale is one of Alexander Fischer's great titles. I want to talk about this game because I want to address something that I said previously. I think it was in the narrative episode, the episode about narrative in games, that I said that this game contains a narrative. Bare bones, it does contain a narrative because there's a couple sentences of narrative text that you read at the beginning and end of each scenario, and there's a connected string of 8 scenarios. But the level of story that's in this game is much less than, say, Maracaibo, one of Alexander Fischer's other titles, and it's not much to write home about. But we give it a play, and we are closing in at the end of the campaign. So there you have it.
Awesome.
Okay, so that's what we've been playing. Let's get into piracy. Now, BGG defines pirate games as pirate games often have themes of or storylines of piracy. That's a very useful definition.
Very thorough, very detailed.
Super deep.
It does go on to say that pirate games usually concern treasure hunting, robbery on the high seas, swords and cannons, and swashbuckling and ship racing. So, okay, the first part wasn't so useful. The second part, a bit more.
I've tried a lot of pirate games in my history of board gaming in an effort to try to find a good one. And there's been multiple pirate games that have not been good for me personally. A lot of the pirate games that I found that have not been good for me personally, I haven't even tried because you look up a pirate game, you're like, oh, cool, there's pirates on the box. And then you start reading the description only to find it's a trick-taking game with not much else going on it, or like a Take That card game. If you take the Venn diagram of Take That card game and pirate games, there's a large overlap.
Yeah, and also, depending on how loose you want to be with the idea of piracy, there's a lot of things that can fall into this. I mean, obviously, space piracy is one big thing. Where I'm not including that on any of my choices, but you could kind of argue that Zaya and things like that, where you're running around in space and possibly shooting down other people, is piracy.
Yeah, Pete, what about Serenity, Firefly?
Yeah, so that's the only one I could think of, everybody, that is anything close to a pirate game that I've ever played. I don't think I've ever played a pirate board game. But yeah, so Firefly would be maybe, but honestly, when you think of Firefly, most people compare it to sci-fi Western, not sci-fi pirate. I get again that the whole idea of your spaceship is your ship, and they go around and they steal things, but that doesn't happen a ton. But yeah, that would probably be very loosely the closest thing I think I've ever played to a pirate game. So yeah, so I'm just really interested to hear about the games that you guys have played, so I can see what I've been missing, or vice versa, what I've not been missing when it comes to pirate themed games.
Fair enough. Before we dig into mentioning more specific games, do we want to address the question why we are even bothering to talk about pirate games, or is that going to come up later?
Oh, we can start off with that. That's
yeah,
fine.
Sure. Yeah, we're talking about pirate games.
Well, first of all, pirates are amazing and awesome, right?
It isn't Talk Like a Pirate Day, is it?
No, sadly it's not.
I think pirates is a good theme for board games, partly because of how the time period and the colorful characters that inhabited it romanticized since then. You go back to actual historical pirates, there are lots of things going on that weren't very pretty. But you hear a story about how Blackbeard managed to take booty and raid other ships simply by threatening them with his reputation alone. That's kind of cool.
Well, and I completely agree with Dan. I mean, you look at the era itself and look how it's labeled. It's called the Golden Age of Piracy. So, I mean, throughout history, it's been romanticized to no other degree.
I like pirate movies.
And there's the obvious connection of big part of why this came up as a topic is because of our playthrough that went up recently of Shiver Me Timbers. So we could talk a little bit about that game. first, as I think that's a good jumping off point. We played it on Tabletop Simulators. It is basically a sandbox style pirate game where you can choose to be a merchant, you can choose to work with a mayor, you can choose to sink other people's ships or enemy ships, or you can choose to go and fight a kraken.
I want to fight a kraken. That is what I'm here for. Fighting krakens. That sounds fun.
All the tales of daring do
that's
happen in pirate tales, including most of the fictitious ones, can happen in that game. I think it does encapsulate the genre pretty well.
Oh, I left us something out. You can even get married in this game.
That's
most pirate games don't cover that.
So I've played Sid Meier's Pirate, the video game. Is it very much like that, but in board game?
100%.
Okay, see now I'm sold. Now I want to go play this board game.
Yeah.
I played the crap 100%. Out of that video game growing up.
That was my comment at the end of that game. Like, I felt like I was playing that like circa 2005. Like, I put so many hours into that game. I loved it.
I still have the CD of it somewhere. I know I do.
They hit the nail on the head with this one. It was fantastic.
Well, I'm not going to argue that Chivalry Timbers was not fantastic. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's like the quintessential pirate game. The only game that I've played that's more the quintessential pirate game than Chivalry Tunders is Merchants and Marauders. And Merchants and Marauders has the advantage of being sort of like one of the grandfathers of pirate board games. It's also like one of those older designs, the 3 to possibly 5 hour like experience game.
That's a long game.
Yeah, I've only played Merchants and Marauders once. Unfortunately. Okay. But me and my brother were playing it on Tabletop Simulator and we were tooling around with it. And I was like, wow, this game's got everything I wanted a pirate game to have. And then I made an attack that did not go my way. So I lost my ship. And because I lost my ship, I was like, wow, that's a big hit to like your progress in the game. I'm like, can I even do anything about this? Or have I just lost? I'm sorry. Have any of you gents played Forgotten Waters? I know James has.
No, I have not.
I have not. I definitely want to try that one.
Okay. So Forgotten Waters I'm going to say this is a narrative game. Out of the box comes 4 different scenarios. It does come with a map and there's a ship token on the map. The game is cooperative. All the players play as crew members on the same boat. Your objective as a player is to, 1, make sure that the boat doesn't sink and complete the overall scenario objective of whatever story you're playing through. But 2, you want to advance along the star chart, which is like a character growth mechanic. And if you fill out your star chart, you get like there's like an epilogue for your character on the back of your character sheet. And it ranges from 3 or less, which is like the bad ending, 4, which is okay ending, and then 5 is the best ending for your character, depending upon how many stars you've achieved throughout the course of the game. But you're on a boat, it's a sailing boat, and you're like the first scenario, no big spoilers, is you're trying to bring magic back to the world and sail off the edge of the world.
Yeah, and this is fully narrated, I believe, by the Plaid Hat Games, who did Dead of Winter. So you do need an app for this one, though.
Yeah, this game is a crossroads game. Yeah. So the events that you encounter depend on the random and semi-random events that you can encounter along the way. And there's a digital app that assists you because, if you end your turn on a tile with a number on it, you like type the number into the app and then it reads you a piece of story. And those are like the random, semi-random events. But then there are tiles that start on the map at setup that also have numbers on them. And that's like the story events that you have to hit. And the game arc is kind of cool too. Each scenario is designed to be played to a certain point, at which point you could choose to save or not, and then completed in a second play session or not if you've got enough time for one scenario in one sitting. But a single play session or half a scenario is approximately 2 hours. So it's just like the right length for me personally.
It's really cool that they put like a save feature into that.
Yeah, especially for a game that is meant to run longer, to build it into the game that you have a save point where everyone's like, okay, I feel good to stop right now. We can pick back up later. That's really well thought out. And the fact that it's the same company, it's a Crossroads game from Plaid Hat as Dead of Winter. Which I love Dead of Winter, though I'm terrible at it. Completely love that game. This one is very much sounding like a game that I would love to give a try.
Well, I own it. I think James also has a copy, so we'll get it to you at some point.
Fantastic. Yeah. And it's got, again, like those games, it's got a nice high player count. If you've got a big group, it looks like you can play up to 7 if you wanted to. That seems like it would probably be a lot, but it's nice for those people who've got a bigger group. So
I mean, it's also playable at lower player counts. Me and Ken have done a scenario or two, just the two of us.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's just a matter of like giving each player more like action tokens so that they can do enough in a single turn.
Okay. That's built into the game that you have, that you can do lower counts like that?
I believe so.
Okay. That's cool.
Okay, one I want to talk about that's lightly pirate themed is Skull King. This is a trick taking card game, so really, how much theme can you really have in a trick taking game? But it's a really good trick taking game. It's simple and fast and fun. It's basically like Oh Hell, where you have to bid based on how many tricks you think you can take, and you get points basically based on whether you meet your bid. If you go over, you can lose points. If you go under your bid, you can lose points. The key thing that makes this interesting is you basically have your normal cards, which are your ships. You have the pirates that are trump. Then you got the Pirate King or Skull King that's like a super trump. Then it comes also with a little mini expansion that can give you cards like the Kraken that just cancels the entire hand. So no matter what other people plays, the whole hand is out. So you kind of thrown everybody's bid off by one potentially, which can be quite devastating. You have mermaids that can only beat pirates and things like that. It's quite interesting, but a simple trick taking game.
Okay, yeah, I got one I'll talk about here. It's actually a game I enjoy playing. It handles large groups really well, called Tortuga 1667 by Facade Game. They have a really cool thing that they do with their games. Every game that they put out is the box is shaped like a book, and real beautiful work with them. I think they're up to 4 now, so they look really, really nice in the bookshelf. So it's pirate themed to a certain extent. It's a card game / party game / social deduction game. So the idea is there's a Spanish galleon that has a bunch of gold on it, and 2 ships come up and they need to unload the gold as quickly as possible before the Spanish Armada shows up. Nobody knows what everybody else's allegiance are. Half the group is English, the other half is French. And the crews on both ships, they're assigned captain, first mate, and so on. And each person with their rank has certain abilities that they can do, like move the treasure back and forth and stuff like that. There's also an island in the middle, the island of Tortuga. There's also gold on there. The idea is to navigate who's on your team, who's not on your team, and get the most gold onto your side before the card of the Spanish Armada shows up. You can play at 8-10 people in 30 to 40 minutes. So it's not a hard game, but it's actually pretty fun. Large groups that I get with, that we usually end up pulling it out because it's pretty good. But I mean, pirate themed, yes, not super thick in the pirate theme. I mean, you could probably slap another theme on top of it really easily and not lose anything in the game. So
yeah, I just pulled this up to look at it. It definitely looks like a Kickstarter game.
Yeah, it's Kickstarter. The biggest thing that I didn't like about the game, there's a mat that goes into the middle of the board, and if you have 8 to 10 people playing, the mat is smaller than a sheet of paper, and you kind of need the mat to keep track of everything. So either everyone gets really, really close, or half the people can't see what's going on half the time.
Yeah, you can see they put a lot of the money from the Kickstarter into improving the quality of the components.
Yeah, it's really good, and like I said, the box is really, really nice. But I wish they had an option for a bigger mat. It's been out a couple years, and they still haven't even offered that yet. So I'm not sure if they ever will.
Well, I get to mention Alexander Fisher again, because there's a game called Maracaibo, which happens to take place in the Caribbean, and you're sailing around the Caribbean in this game. This is another game that has a narrative element, and the narrative element of this game is also pretty strong, I think, if you choose to play that way. That's optional. But there's a storyline campaign that you can advance by doing certain quests, and it takes place over, I don't even know how many chapters. I only know that I'm in chapter like 6 or 7 of this campaign, and we've been doing about a chapter per play, more or less. But there's definitely the delivering of goods. There's definitely an exploration track. There's no direct conflict in this game. You're not like attacking other players, but there's a card that represents a smuggler, and the storyline mentions pirates more than once. So the BGG counts this as a pirate game, and I'm game because allows me to mention a really great game.
But I want my ship to attack your ship. You mean I don't get to have cannons and any of that good stuff? No?
There are no cannons in Maracaibo, no.
Oh, okay.
You must assault with your wit.
With my wit. Okay, I'm going to lose then for sure.
There's a race element to this game for sure.
Oh, okay.
Because you start at a certain point in the Caribbean and you're sort of moving from spot to spot around the Caribbean, and it always comes back towards the ending. So it's a big circle, but whoever finishes the circle first gets like a couple victory points, and then everyone goes to the start city. So if you finish the round first, other people might be like 3 turns away from finishing the round if they went super slow. There's a pacing to it. You kind of want to rush ahead to the city spaces because that's where you can deliver goods, and delivering goods is great because it allows you to upgrade your boat, which provides all sorts of weird special advantages. It's got a tableau building element too, because you have a hand of cards, you pay gold to put these cards into play, and you have the permanent buffs from like these explorers and these smugglers that I mentioned before, and you can hire governors and merchant captains are in the deck. So there is kind of a combat mechanic, but there's combat tiles, so you're not fighting other players, but you're spending like combat points to get these tiles and to get rewards off of them. So
what thematically, what is it that you're supposed to be fighting on those tiles? Is it like creatures, or
when the combat mechanic in the game is tied to, there's 3 nation tracks representing England, France, and Spain.
Mm-hmm.
When you fight a combat, you have to pick one of the 3 nations you're fighting for.
Oh.
So you're fighting in the supremacy wars of the colonial powers in the Caribbean during that age. So when you're fighting, you're also gaining influence on these tracks.
Yeah, I think thematically it's like your privateers, which is basically legal pirates.
Mm-hmm.
In that regard, I have one that's also a privateer game called Francis Drake. It has some similarities to Maracaibo in a very loose sense. It is definitely a very robust game. It's a slightly dry Euro, but in Francis Drake, you have 2 sections of the board. One section is like preparing to go out to sea. I believe this is also set in the Caribbean, if I remember right. But when you're preparing, it's got that mechanic of you can go as far as you want, but then everybody else can go until they pass you. So you may want to go and jump ahead to get the good stuff, but then you might have fewer things when you launch. Then the second section of the board is actually everybody's launching. Depending on what you picked up, you can go further into the Caribbean. You can sail further. You can raid forts. You can raid other ships. You can deliver goods, I believe, as well. It's been a little while since I played it, but it's a very strong game if you like, again, the slightly drier Euros. Another game I would compare this to is Age of Empires.
I want to chime in here because Francis Drake was also on my short list. I have played this game, and I will support the fact that this is actually a very good game. Game on the box says 3 to 5. And I only played this game at 2 with some modified rules to have like a dummy player put in there. And it didn't shine at 2 players plus a bot, but I can see it would do a lot better with more players, basically, from my limited experience. And yeah, it's got this great double phase. You play 3 rounds, but there's 2 phases in each round. Nathan said during the first phase, you've got this road of basically worker placement spots, and you can go as far as you want along this road to drop your worker off to pick up some goods that you'll need for your journey. But you can't go back. Once you take a spot, you can't take any of the spots that appeared before it on the road. You can only go forward down the road. And then I think there's a bonus for whoever reaches the port space and launches their campaign first. You can pick up crew, which helps you raid fortresses. You can pick up cannons that help you defeat galleons. You can pick up supplies, which open up more areas because there's 4 sections of the map to go into. It's got a lot of cool stuff going on.
So when I was looking at the theme for this week, I was struggling trying to figure out a couple ones because there's not a whole lot that I had out there that was like, this is a pirate game. And there was one game that stuck in my head and I couldn't remember the name of it to save my life. And it took forever to remember it, but it came to me, and it's called Pirates of the Spanish Main by Whiz Kids. If you were in a comic book shop in like 2005, 2006, everybody was playing it. It was a collectible card game / tabletop game. And from what I see, in my research of trying to remember what this game was, like, there's still a solid following for this game. So you would actually go to the store, you would buy a booster. It would have a ship or two in it that was laser cut plastic card that you would assemble. Everything you would need for the ship, it was on there. It actually came with a little tiny mini die that was about the size of a popcorn kernel. There was gold doubloons in there, an island, and the idea was you needed to collect the most booty to win the game. All the ships had points value, so you could kind of match up. You could get the booty by digging up treasure on the islands, or you could fight the other people with your cannons and go that way. WizKids ran it, I think, about like 2 years. There was like 12 expansions or something like that for us. So there's tons and tons of ships. And then they ended up, I think that was about when they were like, they went bankrupt or something like that. And like they got sold and never got picked up again. But it was a fantastic game. I think I still have some of them somewhere in my piles of stuff, but yeah, it was a really fun game. It was super simple. Like open the booster pack and like the rules and everything was all in there. You could get 2 boosters and start playing right away.
I'm on BGG right now looking at the fleets of these little ships from this game.
Yeah, I remember this one as well as being someone who was in the industry. I didn't play it. I only saw it sort of like after the fact because of when I became first associated at the store. But yeah, no, we had packs of this game lying around for quite some time. And those tiny D6s that are microscopic, we were finding those when cleaning up for years. I wouldn't be surprised if there was still one tucked away somewhere in the old mall space, even now.
That's hilarious.
I just find it funny that the first picture that comes up on BGG right now is for this topic is, do these ships float? And apparently the answer is no.
No, but they look really cool, actually.
The quality was actually really good overall. I mean, as best as it can be for like a card-sized ship, that you have to assemble. So I mean, there's going to be some fidgetiness there, and eventually it's going to wear. But overall, like the quality was really good. I wish it kind of stayed more than it did, but much like many of those, not everyone can be Magic the Gathering and stay forever.
Right. Well, it looks so interesting. I mean, it's got these, like you said, it's got the little cutout ships, but then there's also like the little cutout squid arms coming out of the water. There are little islands.
Yeah, and they covered
there's just so much stuff. Yeah,
they did Caribbean. I just pulled it up. They got South China Sea, the Frozen North. So there's so much that they covered. Now talking about it, I want to try and find some packs and play it again.
Absolutely. I'd be on board on checking that out. It looks really fun.
Having never played that game, but seeing the bits back in the day, I would probably give it a whirl too.
You should see if the store has some buried in the like way back underneath.
I'm pretty sure we no longer have any, given the fact that we moved locations since I last saw any. So
yeah, I think that's like grounds for like a movie. You like you going in digging through the storeroom, you found these hidden treasures, and then it's like things like this, and like that happens in movies. Yeah.
So another one that I got here, I'm going to delve into a miniature game, Blood and Plunder by Firelock Games.
Good title.
Oh yeah, definitely. They've got a couple different lines. So they have Blood and Plunder, they have Oak and Iron, which is actually just a straight ship-based combat, and Blood and Valor for World War I. But Blood and Plunder, it's pirate-based, 28 millimeter, covers all the major players in the golden age of piracy. You have the French, you have the Dutch, you have the English, and so on. And you actually can play unaligned and be pirates. So it has the big old rule book in there, probably somewhere in the range of like 96 to 100 pages. But overall, everything you need to play the game is actually on like a playing card size, like quick reference. So each individual units that you bring to the board, there's 3 stats into the game. There's their shooting. I can't remember the other 2 because I haven't actually played it. I still have a bunch of it and still sitting, needed to be painted and all that. But the 3 main stats are right there and all at close hand. Mostly what you need the rulebook for is each individual countries have like individual specific skills that add to different things. But from everything that I've watched and what I've read, it's really cool. And they actually put rules in there that you have to do ship-to-ship combat into it too. So they cover kind of like all your bases for pirate like combat.
It was going to come up eventually, so it might as well be now. I'm going to mention Tiny Epic Pirates. That's right, folks. Gameland Games did a tiny epic game based with a pirate theme. And this is one of their more recent titles I actually enjoyed quite. I own most of the early titles, and then I sort of dropped off the boat for a little while, but this one's good. Tiny Epic Pirates has a lot of the stuff that you would expect out of a pirate game. There's a pick up and deliver mechanic using 4 different kinds of goods, and there's a market mechanism so that the value of these goods vary somewhat as people manipulate them. There's 2 NPC merchant ships that you can go raid. There's 1 NPC Royal Navy ship that you totally have to avoid because it will destroy you. There's cool assigning mechanic. You get like a couple meeples and you can assign them to your sails to get extra movement, or to your cannons to get extra like attack power. There's a leveling mechanic. As you defeat galleons, you can gain experience and become a pirate legend. The goal of the game is to bury 3 treasures. So each player has 3 treasure like wooden tokens, and they have to accumulate enough gold to bury a treasure, and then go to a certain location and do a certain action in order to bury it. The last and potentially biggest piece of the game that I'll mention is that it uses like sort of a rondel mechanic for choosing your action. So on your turn, you can always move a certain number of spaces, and then you perform whatever action you pick. But there's 6 different actions, and they're all in this circular rondel. The rondel is randomized, so it's different for each player in each game even. And you can use like your meeples to sort of skip over spaces so that you don't have to perform the next action in the rondel. But yeah, very, very cool for a small box game. Definitely.
I still haven't played any of the Tiny Epic games.
Oh man, we need to organize like a binge session or something.
Yeah, because every time I see them, I've looked at the boxes, I've read some of the descriptions, and they sound like so much fun. And so I'm definitely interested in trying them out. I just have never played one, and they've definitely got a couple. The Tiny Epic Pirates sounds fun. I know they've got another new release, Tiny Epic Dungeons, which is right up my alley for the fantasy genre. But there's a lot of older ones that I know that I've read about that I would like to try out at some point. So
what's nice with that too is if you clear your day, you can play all of them in a day.
So
did we do a playthrough on the channel for Tiny Epic Zombies? I think it was.
I think we do have a playthrough for Tiny Epic Zombies somewhere on the channel. Yes.
Okay.
We played it once, I think, on TTS.
I don't remember playing it, so maybe that was the week I was away, but I don't know. Maybe. But sign me up for Tiny Epic Pirates. It sounds fun.
Okay, so I would like to talk about Islebound. Islebound is a Ryan Lockett game, and that really tells you most of what you need to know if you've ever played a Ryan Lockett game. Ryan Lockett's the one that did Above and Below, Near and Far, and games like that, and he has a really nice art style. He does all his art himself. He builds signs a game. He pretty much does everything on his own, which is really impressive. But in Islebound, basically you're going to different locations and using those locations to do different activities such as building, hiring crew, collecting resources. But you can also attack the towns you capture them so you can do the actions for free, and some other people have to pay you to do those actions. So I mean, the piracy element is not like a huge element of this necessarily, but it can be if you choose it to be.
So the next one I'm going to talk about, it's only a portion of the game, but Merchant's Cove by Final Frontier Games. So Merchant's Cove it's an asymmetric game. Everybody that's plays as a different merchant into this port. So all the adventurers, while they're out about, come to the port to restock and resupply and buy the goods. So of all the different merchants that are available in the game, one of them is a sea captain, and you spin a spinner, and that helps you navigate your ship, and you have to navigate around different outlets, dig up treasure, and that's your goods that you're going to go and sell to the adventurers coming in. It says it's an asymmetric game, so one person's going to be a blacksmith, and it's dice placement. Another person's going to be making potions. Their board is very much like playing Potion Explosion. I haven't got to play it yet. I just got it probably within the last 6 months from when it kickstarted like a year and a half, 2 years ago or something like that. I still need to put it together and give it a go, but I really enjoy the line that Final Frontiers put out, so I'm really on board with a lot of things that they produce.
This is another one I want to try, just because of the asymmetric abilities.
Yeah, I'm really drawn to that. It just makes I think it makes the game more fun since not everybody's doing the same thing.
I've got one more. I don't necessarily want to end on a down note, so I'm hoping somebody has another amazing game after me, but I've got one that is sort of a cautionary tale. So I found what looked to be an amazing pirate game called The Pirate Republic. I could not find this game through my regular channels, so I actually Amazoned this game in order to acquire it back in the day. I found a great big board that was a map of the Caribbean. Oh, that looks good, right? I found that the game had a combination of deck building and tableau building in order to like build up your strength so you could take on bigger and bigger threats as the game went on. Oh, that sounds pretty good, right? There was a weather die that sort of determined how far you could move during your turn, but it was the weather die plus like 3, so you could always get to something that was interesting. But ultimately, I got rid of this game, and this game failed me. And this game failed me because power creep is real, I guess it would be the best way to put it. So the game attempted to do realism. And in real life Pirates, if you didn't get the drop on your enemy, you were dead in the water. You needed the element of surprise, or you needed to get first strike on your opponent at sea in order to be able to successfully raid them. And this game simulated this with like an initiative die. And if you won the initiative, you could play your hand of cards with cannons and swords to take out the enemy. If you didn't win the initiative die, then you had to play your hand of swords or cannons to block the incoming damage from your opponent, and then you had no cards with which to take them out. So at that point, you had to flee. That was difficult. It was virtually impossible to take on more than one ship at a time, and it felt like the resources that you gained over the arc of the game never hit the point where you could deal with more than like the basic level of threat. Forts are incredibly difficult to deal with. Pirate hunters, just run. So
it sounds like a game that did not get play tested probably enough to try to balance it right.
It was, I believe, a Kickstarter game by a smaller publisher. So probably.
Yeah, I was looking at the images of these, and it's like, it does. I'm dubious just from looking at the images. It's like, it looks like a game that's designed by someone who doesn't really design many games. And it's like, even like looking at the map,
the map's amazing.
Hard. It's nice, but it's not designed for legibility. It seems like it doesn't seem to me like it's designed to be easily to parse what's going on. But that's just from looking at the BGG images. They're not the best pictures, so maybe the real map is a little nicer.
Yeah, if there's one thing that's good about that game, it's the map. The map might be worth the game if you can buy it for really, really cheap.
Get the map and mount it.
Not mount it. Use it for a different pirate game. That's my advice.
Well, I have another really good pirate game to talk about that's really hard to get. Libertalia. Now, this is another one that's like, okay, the theme could in theory be anything, but basically everybody's going to have the identical hand of cards, each with its own powers, and you're going to be trying to steal loot basically using the powers of these cards. But the key thing is this game goes for 3 rounds, and you know what everybody's played. You know what cards they started with, and the next round you know, oh, this guy doesn't have this card anymore, so now they're vulnerable to this other card. So it's really important to pay attention to what everybody's played, and hold on to cards, hoping people you use the cards that are protect against it before you need to play that card, or just try to play it early and hope people don't think you're going to play this your powerful card so early. Probably did not do the best of explaining that game, but have any of you played it?
No.
Unfortunately, because it's hard to find, I don't own it. I've only played other people's copies. I've only had a couple chances to play this game, so I do really love it.
All right, the last one I have, and it actually got added to my list last night as I was just randomly poking around. So it's a miniature game called Sails of Glory. So Sails of Glory, it's naval combat in the age of the tall ships. So you have a couple different ships out there, and you have a player aid that's in front of you for each ship. It's produced by Ares Games. So if anyone's familiar with Ares Games, they did Wings of War and another one that was similarly named, but it was World War I and World War II planes, and you would plot your movement with a deck of cards. So this is the same thing. You would actually plot your movements on this turn and the following turn with the deck of cards. So you're always planning one turn ahead, and everything from wind speed to what sails you have determine how far you'll go based off the cards. The idea is to destroy the other ships out there, and you could do that by killing enough crew, damaging the sails, sinking the ship flat out by damaging the hull. Really neat thing about it is there is, I think, 5 colored chits in the game for damage. So depending on if you're attacking with like the hull, or if you're damaging riggings, or if you're shooting from long distance, you pull a certain chit and it'll go onto the player aids to mark down damages onto the ships. Now, the original edition of it was mostly for like Napoleonic era, but they just at Essen are re-releasing this game, and they're going to actually put it for the Age of Piracy. So that was actually just released here and announced within the last few weeks that they're actually doing this.
Just in time for this episode.
Perfect.
It's like it was meant to be.
Yeah, that is a game that I have not played, but I have at least heard about for sure. And that Wings of War system was eventually turned into X-Wing.
Yeah, what I really like with that one is because in all the other ones, you're only plotting what you're doing this turn. This one is you have to plot 2 turns ahead. So it's constantly, did I plan this right? And if I didn't, it's going to be a little bit before I can recorrect it, which really fits into the theme of sailing a ship that big. Because if I'm going to turn, it's going to take an awful long time for it to actually turn.
One last one I want to briefly mention, because I haven't had a chance to play it. I don't want to go too much into it. Is Skull Tales. Now, Skull Tales is one I backed on Kickstarter, was really excited to get it. And a lot of the big Kickstarters is when I got it, it's like, there is so much in here. I don't know where to start. It's a really promising game. I need to get this table. I need to sit down and actually learn how to play this. But it sounds a lot like Forgotten Waters. It's a cooperative or semi-cooperative pirate-themed game with a lot of storytelling elements. You're going through the journey. You're adventuring. You have some RPG elements. Yeah, so basically, it's cooperative board game meets RPG and storytelling, and it looks really exciting. And I really got to get to the table.
All right, Pete. So, what's on the top of your list? Ye who have played no pirate games.
That's tough because I feel like even though we have this nice overarching theme, it almost feels like there's a lot of different kinds of games that have tried to pull that theme in. And according to you all, somewhat differing levels of success. Probably the first one that if I was like, okay, let's go put this on the table, probably for me would be Forgotten Waters from all of the descriptions. That one to me sounds like, again, that was the one that's it's cooperative play, sounds very thematic and narrative, which all of those things tick all the boxes for me and my style of play. So that one would be probably really high up there. But then also I really want to play Shiver Me Timbers. And now I'm really sad that I didn't get to play with you guys. So that one is now high up on my list as well. But I think if I had to choose one and say, let's get it to the table right now, it would be the Forgotten Water. But there's some interesting things happening that, like Sails of Glory that Evan just talked about. I've never played a game, like a tabletop game with that style of play where it's very realistic. It's got different types of ships, and then you're actually measuring distances. I've never done a war type game like that, and I've always wanted to try one. So whether it would be, Dan mentioned X-Wing would have been up my alley because I like Star Wars a lot. So, but if we're going to do one, then I pirating games sound like it would be fun. I'd probably rather do that than some of I know there are tank games and other stuff out there. I like ships. Ships are cool. So, but yeah, Forgotten Waters for me would be the one that I would pick out of all the ones that you guys have talked about tonight. Just because I wasn't with you guys last week, what was everyone's thoughts on Shiver Me Timbers? When you walked away from it, what was your thought?
That was the second or third time I had played this game, because I had played it twice with Ken on Tabletop Simulator.
Right.
I played it with these guys once. So it just solidified my opinion that this is probably the best pirate game that I'm going to find in the modern board game market. I mean, Merchants and Marauders has been out of print for years at this point, so it's no longer in the modern game market, and it's not a modern game, really. So you've played it online. Do you own like the physical copy of Shiver Me Timbers, or is that like you don't have it? Yeah, I don't have it.
Is it one you want to get then? Because you like it?
Yes, it is on my wish list.
Okay,
yes.
It's solid enough that you're like, yes, I need to have this physical.
Yeah,
copy.
James has a physical copy.
Oh, okay, all right.
Because he was able to review it.
Gotcha. No, yeah. So this is like a very fresh game, but according to Dan, lives up to all of the pirating like dreams and wishes. The people who wanted to be pirates. This is the game that will give you that feel.
Yeah, it was my first play of that, and it absolutely, that's exactly what it was. Once we got to play going after about the second turn, I figured out exactly what I was doing.
Right.
I felt like I could have just put my pirate hat on and sang, sea shanties while playing, and I would have been all right.
Awesome.
Now, James isn't here, so I'll speak for him.
Yeah. Okay, do that.
He's told me that this is his favorite pirate game of all time, above Forgotten Waters. I believe he said Forgotten Waters was his second favorite. I haven't played Forgotten Waters yet, but this is definitely my favorite pirate game.
Well, then I am looking forward to playing both of those games eventually with you guys and finally getting to say I have played a pirate game.
Check that box.
Check that box like 5 times. Come on.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a game that I've heard about that sound really interesting for pirate games. Somewhat unique was, I think it's called World of Yoho. It's something very similar to that, but it's a game where you put your phone on the table on the board, and when your ships fight, you can see the cannonballs fire from your phone into the other person's phone, and it'll show up the explosion. So it's kind of like, it looks like a gimmick, but kind of a fun sounding gimmick.
Yeah, it's a fun sounding gimmick for sure. Who knows if the game's any good, but at least you get to see the cannons fire at each other's phone. I like it.
Yeah, that's right.
Dimes Dollars says that the game is obsolete because phones keep on getting bigger and bigger every year. It comes a time when even the rational man must hoist the Jolly Roger and go on a rampage.
All right, so I got this here. So are ye mateys, today for our nonsense, we are going to play a game that I have entitled, Do You Know Your Pirate? So I have written 4 short synopses about 4 different pirates, and I'm going to see if you guys can identify the pirate based off of my description. And I have a tiebreaker question if we're still tied at the end.
I was going to say, first question, just if it's okay to ask, are all of these pirates real or fiction or both?
All of them are historical pirates.
Oh, okay, man, I'm out.
I might have you out too. We'll find out.
We'll see how it goes. All right, sounds good.
We will see what happens here.
Okay.
So number 1, we're going to start with one of the most famous pirates. This Englishman arrived in the Caribbean in his 20s and quickly got a letter of marque to hunt Spanish ships. He gained the rank of admiral, commanded a small fleet of 10 ships from his ship named the Satisfaction. He raided cities like Port-au-Prince, Portobello, and Gibraltar. He used his prize money to buy sugar plantations in Jamaica, where he died as lieutenant governor. Name that pirate.
So this sounds like a very legitimate pirate.
It is one of the few that actually did not end up dying from his pirating.
Yeah.
It's true. Most of them died a horrible, terrible death.
Yes.
I could just list the different pirates I know, but that's probably not going to be.
All right. Well, I'm gonna take a guess.
Okay. Who do you got?
I'm gonna say Sir Francis Drake.
What do you got, Nate?
My guess would be Roberts, Dread Pirate Roberts. I don't think it's right. It'll probably be the answer to one of the questions, though.
But we are going just historical, no fictionals.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that fictional?
Yeah. That is The Princess Bride.
Oh no, really? Yeah.
Yep.
I knew. I didn't know where it was from. So okay.
Dan, what do you got?
He's thinking really hard.
Henry Morgan was my wild guess.
Henry Morgan. All right. Well, one of you got it correct.
Oh.
It was Dread Pirate Roberts.
And that would be Dan. It was actually Henry Morgan.
Nicely done, Dan.
No. Okay. All right.
Oh my goodness.
I just picked a name that I happen to remember.
That is awesome. Well done.
Good job. All right. Pirate number 2. This French pirate operated in the Gulf of Mexico. After years of piracy and smuggling in New Orleans and later Tortuga Bay, the U.S. Navy captured most of his fleet in 1814. In exchange for a pardon, he and his crew assisted Andrew Jackson in defending New Orleans from the British at the Battle of New Orleans, the War of 1812. Name that pirate. Who wants to throw a guess out there first?
As you can tell, we are all history buffs.
I'll keep with the fictional ones and go LeChuck.
Well, it's obviously not Sir Francis Drake because he's not French. So I can't guess that one. I'm just going to throw out a French name and say that he had Pierre in his name.
Okay. Not a bad guess.
No, it's Pierre because it's Peter in French. So it's my name, dude.
What do you got, Dan?
I don't think he was French. Bellamy?
Okay. So none of you got this one, but his name was John Lafayette.
I almost went with Lafayette just because it's the only other French name I know that would. But yeah, interesting.
He too actually did not die a pirate's death, but he was well after the age of piracy, so that might be something to do with it too. So number 3 here. This Scotsman was commissioned as a privateer for England. Armed with his ship, the Adventure Galley, he raided French and Dutch ships in the Caribbean. His crew threatened to mutiny unless he became a pirate, and after a few years of being a pirate, he was arrested in New York and hung in England in 1701.
Yeah, not history buffs. not history buffs. I'm just going to throw out Captain Kidd because, we've got to mention him at least once, right?
I'll say Blackbeard.
Blackbeard. Okay.
There you go.
And Nate, what fictional pirate are you throwing out here?
I'm going to go with Jebediah Springfield this time.
All right. One of you actually has this one correct.
Oh, boy.
Me?
And I will say it is not you, Nate. I'm sorry. Actually, Dan, again, this was Captain Kidd.
No, I do not know these. I do not know this.
The last one I have here.
Uh-huh.
This Irish pirate moved to the Carolina colonies when they were young. After moving to Nassau, they were drawn to the pirate life from their spouse. Aboard the ship William, together they were active for 2 years and captured in 1720 because their crew was too drunk to fight. While in prison, they were sentenced to death, and the execution sentence was stayed because she was pregnant. And maritime law at that point said if you were pregnant, you could not be executed. No records show release, execution, or death afterwards. Who was that pirate?
I know who she was, but not who he was.
Well, I only want she.
Oh, you want her?
I want her.
Oh, I thought you wanted him. I'll let them talk first.
No. If you know it, just put us out of our misery right now. But I am going to go on the record. Blackbeard was an actual pirate, not fiction.
That is true.
Correct.
So, but no.
Now let me think a second, because I know who she is, but what was her name? Because I'm terrible with names.
This is one I probably should know as well because
I'm going to get 3 out of 4.
I know I've heard it.
I'm going to be super impressed.
It's not bad for a non-history buff.
I know, right? Come on, Dan. Don't let us down.
She was one of the few famous Caribbean female pirates.
Yeah, there was 2 of them. One of them, I don't know if it helps. She was in the Assassin's Creed Black Sails,
which I've played.
Yeah, she was also in they mentioned her as part of the 3rd Nathan Drake game, because that was the game that was about pirates.
Mm-hmm. Got nothing?
Yeah.
I'm going to just go with a piratey sounding female name of Jezebel.
So the who we are looking for is Anne Bonny.
Oh, my Bonnie lies over the ocean.
Yeah, she just mysteriously disappeared after giving birth.
Interesting.
Yeah, rumors, but like historical accounts, she escaped and went back to piracy, but there's no records of it after that at all. So nobody knows for sure.
I would say that's a weird loophole. If you could just like stay pregnant all the time, you could never be executed. But like back in those days, being pregnant could be fatal too. So
6 in one, half a dozen in the other. So the last thing I had was just the tiebreaker. I'll just throw it out there. And it was just going to be who can get the closest to this. What year did the age of piracy officially end? I had to look this one up. I had no idea.
I don't even want to guess. I'm just going to look like an idiot.
I will guess, and I will say 1730.
I think it was earlier. I'm going to go with like 1610.
I will go 1701.
I was going to say, who's going to Price is Right me and say 1729?
I thought about doing that.
So, actually, Pete, you nailed it on the nose.
Are you serious?
1730 is the official end of the golden age of piracy.
Nice. I got one.
You got one. but that didn't beat the 2 that Dan flubbed his way into.
Yay, good job, Dan. Well done.
Literally flubbed. I claim no knowledge or expertise on this topic, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, better lucky than good sometimes.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks a lot, Evan, for the nonsense. That was enjoyable.
Thank you for listening. If you have any feedback for us, feel free to visit us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or Board Game Geek Guild 2989, or our website at tabletopgamingguild.com. Don't forget to like, follow, and or subscribe. Tabletop Gaming Guild is a product of Tabletop Gaming Guild LLC. All rights reserved.